The Pentagon, the contract, $168.9 million.
Yeah.
How did this come to fruition, James?
Well, $169 million at the low end, but it could go as high as $250 million US as well.
So if the U.S. is serious about, rebuilding its stockpile of these critical minerals, how does Ares potentially fit into that over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the nice part is that nobody else in the US is in a position to supply the government with fluorspar. And this is a material that they need stockpiling now. To finally get the contract, that was obviously a big win because it was also a commendation of credibility. This is like, we've seen everything you're doing, we have sufficient confidence that you can deliver, and here's the award of a contract.
Before we begin, Ares Strategic Mining has paid Maximus Strategic Consulting Inc. for marketing services, including the production and dissemination of this video. Maximus Strategic Consulting Inc. is the owner and operator of Pinnacle Digest. This is not investment advice. Please read the full disclosure at the end of this video. Today in the studio, I'm joined with James Walker, the CEO of Ares Mining, which describes itself as a company with the only permitted fluorspar mine in the United States. Fluorspar is deemed a critical mineral by the U.S. government. Most people don't know what it is, don't know how to spell it, but we're going to clear up on all that right now. It's one of the last remaining non-metallic critical minerals of which the U.S. is nearly 100% import dependent. It's got applications in defense, semiconductors, and the clean tech sector. Now, James, you were here about 2 years ago. We had you on the show. We did a kind of a remote Zoom thing.
Yes.
Welcome back, man.
No, I'm very pleased to be back.
Yeah.
It's circumstances are a lot better now than they were 2 years ago too.
I was going to say a lot has changed. Before we get into some of the developments with Ares, tell our audience what fluorspar is. Why is it so important?
Yeah, it's funny. I still get asked this question even after, being in this mine operation for like 5 years now. But fluorspar is a critical mineral, an industrial mineral. It's used in the manufacture of hydrofluoric acid, lithium-ion batteries, steel, aluminum, refrigeration units, cement, glass industries. It's one of the most ubiquitously used industrial minerals in the world. The only reason people haven't heard about it is because the industry in North America got shipped overseas during the 90s when China was industrializing as a country. And for that reason, the people involved in that industry moved out of it. And consequently, no one's heard of it, even though we all use it on a day-to-day basis. Everyone's got a fridge, everyone's got a freezer, and still no one's heard about what it is. Yeah.
What about for defense purposes? I understand it's quite important in defense.
Enormously so. So there's several aspects here. It's not just used in the manufacture of microchips and semiconductors, which is obviously very important for anything, missiles, technology, all of that kind of thing. But it goes beyond that. So when you are enriching uranium, as an example, you need the feed material to be uranium hexafluoride. Everyone knows that in a nuclear weapon or a submarine or an aircraft carrier, you have reactor systems using enriched uranium. But the bigger component in the feed to make enriched uranium is uranium hexafluoride. It's the fluoride part of it. So if it doesn't matter if it's laser enrichment or if it's gaseous diffusion or centrifuge enrichment, you need a lot of fluorspar to go into that. So if you're the defense industry, you care about the manufacture of semiconductors, microchips, but you also care about your ability to be able to enrich uranium, and you need fluorspar for that. So you can have your submarines and your aircraft carriers, and you can deploy your military across the world.
Okay. And fluorspar is also important in nuclear reactors?
It's incredibly important. There's no nuclear reactors without fluorspar because all nuclear reactors use enriched uranium. That enriched uranium, once it goes into that enrichment process, the feed material that goes into that is uranium hexafluoride. And the giveaway there is the uranium hexafluoride, the fluoride part of it. There's two whole stages in that conversion process, and that's what it's called, the conversion process. The fluorination process, and then the addition of hydrofluoric acid within that process as well to create that uranium hexafluoride that then goes into the enrichment process.
Right.
Yeah.
I think by now our audience can tell that you're not a normal junior mining CEO. James won't tell you, but he's a former special forces with the British. And it's taken a lot to get here. But tell us right now, what stage of development is the Lost Sheep fluorspar mine at?
Okay, this is why it's quite nice talking about the project now.
Yeah.
Because everything's been done. We've got the mines all permitted, the mine installations are in place, there's mining crews there, all the heavy mining equipment has been bought, the installations to get to the ore body, the ramps, the adits, that's all been installed, it's been shotcreted and rock bolted, and we're pulling ore out of the ground now. We're actually mining today, and we're stockpiling the material. We've stockpiled thousands of tons of feed material at surface. And at the processing site, we bought a 50-acre industrial site. We've built all the warehouses. We've got all the heavy mining equipment, heavy machinery at that site too. And we bought all the plants. We bought 2 big plants, and one is about 95% complete. The only thing that's remaining now is just to install the electrics into that system and turn it on. And then all of that stockpiled material we've got at surface for the mine, then we can also start throwing that into the machine, and then we've got final product. And so the nice thing is that it's not just revenue that's imminent. It's really in the next couple months. In the next couple months, we'll be selling this product. And there's no shortage of buyers. That's the nice part too. Yeah.
We got to talk about the news from last month. The Pentagon, the contract, $168.9 million. Yeah. How did this come to fruition, James?
Well, $169 million at the low end, but it could go as high as $250 million US as well. And so this didn't come about slowly. There's a bit of a backstory here as well. I think during the Clinton administration, Clinton saw a short-term win by selling the national stockpiles of minerals. And so the US has been sitting with no national stockpile of minerals for a few decades now. So the Trump administration is putting all that back in place for the security of the country. And that means that the Pentagon has been charged with finding domestic producers that can fill in these gaps. And so when they got around to fluorspar, they realized, this is an incredibly important mineral, but actually that industry was shipped overseas and there's not many producers. Very quickly they found us because we had the only permitted fluorspar mine, and we were putting in big investment into getting into this to be industrial scale. So we worked with the DoD for well over a year, and they inspected the mine site several times. We went through everything from schedules to specifications to delivery, to where this would be stockpiled, how we would get it there, even down to how frequent the numbers of days of the week we could deliver this product was. The government are a very detail-orientated entity. And so, going through all of this over this amount of time, we finally got into a point where the contract was finalized and we signed it. And obviously that was a big relief to get that done. But an enormous game changer for us.
So what's required for Ares to receive this funding from the Pentagon?
So it's really a matter of, we make it and we deliver it and we get paid. I mean, and it's a quick turnaround too.
Right.
We went through a long assessment process with regard things like pricing, and they wanted to make sure it would be competitive, but also a good incentive for us because the schedule that they're asking for can be quite aggressive in the later years, and so they obviously wanted to make sure it was worth our while. We've got a very good price locked in with them. I mean, I think we're very happy with the way this has been structured and how this is going to essentially lead to an incredibly successful financial operation for Ares. Yeah.
When are you expecting to start announcing revenue and things like that?
So it's imminent. The nice part is because the mining is all done and we're mining right now, because the plant is purchased and on site and mostly constructed, and it just has to have the electrics installed the next couple months. At that sort of point, we're going to be producing final product. And, we already have the rail car. We can put that on a rail car and we can ship it.
Right. So accounting for the Pentagon contract, is there any other money or capital that's needed to enter commercial production?
So this is the nice part, is like normally, CEOs of junior miners, they're always, looking for more money.
Of course.
I'm in a nice position now where like I don't need to do that. Like we've got all the big expenditures are done. The mine's done, the plants have been purchased. There'll be some construction costs for the second plant, but a lot of that can probably come out of revenue as well. To get ourselves into revenue now, we don't need anything else. Like we're in a very comfortable position. We have money in the bank. We have everything purchased. We have the crews, the staff, the land, warehousing, the customers. The best possible position to be in. So,
Talk to me about the second plant and how you see that developing.
So the second plant is the flotation plant. So in Fluorspar, you have two main product lines. You have the metallurgical grade. That goes into things like glass and steel, cement, that kind of thing. The flotation plant can produce a much higher purity product, which is acid spar. It's not actually acid. It's just the reason why they call it that is that a lot of that product goes into the chemical industry to manufacture hydrofluoric acids and things like that. But that flotation plant will create that higher grade purity product that's able to make hydrofluoric acid and fluorine and goes into things like uranium enrichment, refrigeration units. It's 2/3 really of the US market. And I think globally it's probably the majority portion of where Fluorspar ends up as well.
Right. And is that more expensive than the other?
It is more expensive. So it normally commands about a $200 increase in terms of sale price than the metallurgical grade.
And how is the met grade? And what are those costs right now? Like, is it per kilogram? How is Fluorspar priced?
So typically Fluorspar is sold by the ton.
Okay.
It's sold by the ton. So usually the big 1-ton bags, and you pack all of those together, and you're shipping hundreds of these 1-ton bags on a monthly basis.
What is the cost roughly per ton right now?
It does vary depending on your specifications. I would say the global average for the metallurgical grade is probably somewhere about 400. I would say average for acid spar is probably about 500, but there's some nuance here because if you've got high arsenic content, you're going to have a sort of a bit of a lower selling price, or impurities are going to determine that selling price. If you've got a very pure product, it could be $700-800 a ton.
Right.
So the range, it can be quite substantial. It's not like gold where, it's a pretty uniform price, per ounce.
Yeah, it varies.
Fluorspar can really range from, for acid spar, $300 all the way up to $800 per ton.
And how many tons are you hoping to produce?
So initially, the annual production that we see is going to be really in the region of about 50,000 tons a year. And that's not because of the capacity of the plants. The plants could go way over that. They could do 100,000, 150,000 tons a year. It's the mining type that we're doing. We've installed sort of corkscrew ramp installations with these offshoot adits that intersect the ore bodies. And it's really about the capacity of each one of those to get that material out of the ground and through that ramp installation to the surface. That's where the bottleneck is. So when we install secondary and tertiary mine sites, then you can double or triple that capacity pretty quickly.
What do you estimate it to cost you to mine a ton of fluorspar?
So we've done, obviously, our own studies on this. And as we've developed, the granularity has got more defined. I think the original estimates were something like as low as $150 a ton. Now, obviously, inflation has increased that, and recent studies show really somewhere in the region of about $250 to $300 a ton to produce the high-grade product. So, effectively, we are in the ballpark of looking at about a 50% margin on the sale price. So the margin is very comfortable on this. Now, we always run the risk of things costing a little bit more, but we're comfortable is the message.
What are some of the risks that Ares might face as you begin to ramp up, from an operational standpoint? Obviously in mining, there's always potential setbacks. Yeah. Do you see any sort of near-term challenges?
It's a good question because junior mining is rife with risk. Yeah. I think every junior mining CEO obviously always thinks there's an easy path to production, and then you start getting into it and all sorts of things happen to you that you never see coming. I don't want to be the guy that just says we've completely de-risked the project.
Of course.
even though we have substantially de-risked it now, the big expenditures have been done and we're so close. But there is always things that can go wrong. Like at the moment, we're installing the electrics into the plant. That could take a month longer. Maybe that annoys shareholders. Maybe they get so annoyed they start selling stock and the price dips. But like the nice part is whatever happens now, we will get that into production. Like all the heavy lifting's been done. There could be delays on certain things. There could even be. Maybe there's some metallurgical issues to begin with as well that means that the spec isn't quite what we want and there needs to be a bit of an optimization period. These are all things that can factor into it.
Yeah.
But generally, we're comfortable at the moment.
I know, from your military background that you're all about execution. And, projects really succeed or fail based on that.
Yeah.
You're so close, as you mentioned. Is there any sort of operational hurdles that you still have to clear between now and that first production? You mentioned electricals. Is there anything else big?
Combined with the electricals, the control instrumentation, but it's all related to that kind of thing. And look, we've actually fabricated all the electrical equipment now. That got completed in January. Right. And we're going to be installing that into the plant. In fact, we're installing it right now. In terms of anything else that could go wrong, it's physical work. It's like the construction industry. There could be a delay on certain parts, or people aren't available, or construction crews aren't there, or the trucks are broken down. These sort of things are going to be routine, and it's really about having the people in place to make sure that things will go wrong. Do we have the capacity to fix things quickly? That's going to be the important driver to make sure we can be as efficient as possible.
Let's talk about, what determines whether or not a fluorspar operation is, profitable or successful. Yeah. Right? A lot of investors, they hear critical minerals and they just assume, wow, this is going to be a win no matter what. Yeah. Obviously, that's not the case. But when it comes to fluorspar, what makes it? Well,
the fluorspar, like any industrial mineral, it's not just about how much in demand this material is. Can you get it out of the ground economically? The thing is, when you start at the very start of an operation and you're doing the drilling, the margins always look great. And then reality begins to creep in. Admittedly, we've got very lucky in some big aspects. So, for instance, we're, by complete coincidence, just next door to the only beryllium mine in the whole of the United States. And beryllium has a very military strategic importance. But for that reason, the government built a massive highway all the way to that beryllium mine. And that means that they essentially built us a highway all the way to our fluorspar mine. Now, that is a very lucky break because you can have the greatest mine in the world, but if your logistics are difficult and the costs of the transportation are off, you don't have an operation. So very fortunate. Thank you to the government for building that highway that basically us and Materion would use, and it'll just be us.
Yeah.
And the other lucky part was that we managed to purchase the only industrial site in the entire area. So we own that. If we didn't have that, then actually having a factory in Delta near the mine site, that wouldn't be a possibility either. And that might mean we need to transport it even further. We need to transport a lot more ore. Again, we got very lucky. These things happen along the way. You get more unlucky, I would say, than lucky when you're trying to put a mine into production. But sometimes you get a lucky break. And I would say those two are lucky breaks.
So if the U.S. is serious about rebuilding its stockpile of these critical minerals, how does Ares potentially fit into that over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, the nice part is that nobody else in the US is in a position to supply the government with fluorspar. And this is a material that they need stockpiling now. We've already touched upon a few of the strategic importances for the military side of things. And look, they're going to be stockpiling all of these for any future incidents. And essentially, this is security for wartime and things like that, when you have to have a national independence, that sovereignty of control over how you manufacture things. And you can't rely on international supply chains. And that is why there's this big domestic drive. And that's why they took so long to critique our entire operation and meet the crews and inspect everything.
Yeah.
This was a big process we had to go through to make sure that we could deliver, and they had reasonable confidence we could. And to finally get the contract, that was obviously a big win, because it was also a commendation of credibility. It's like, we've seen everything you're doing, we have sufficient confidence that you can deliver, and here's the award of a contract. Now all you got to do is produce it and deliver it, and you get paid for it. Up to potentially $250 million worth of delivery.
I think I know the answer to this, but looking out the next quarter, the next 6 months, what are a few milestones that you would have investors focus on? Just even zooming out further, when people look back at this project in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, what impact do you want it to have?
So, in terms of near-term catalysts, watch out for when we first turn on the lumps plant and we begin producing that metallurgical grade. First sales of that metallurgical product. You're going to see the construction of that flotation plant and the completion of it this year. And then you'll see the first production of acid spar and the sales to the government. These are all big catalysts. And long term, I would imagine there's going to be the installation of new mines at the Lost Sheep area. So that, the whole Spore Mountain area will get secondary and tertiary mine sites producing, so we can increase capacity. That'll generate more revenue, better bottom line. This is going to be a very nice position to be in. And beyond the government, say we can overproduce. There's no shortage of customers in the chemical industry, in the technology industry, or even in the nuclear industry. So we have this broad customer base that we can access. If we can overproduce, there's always going to be buyers. So.
James, thanks for meeting with us. Best of luck. Congratulations again.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you very much.